Well, I've felt a lot resistance actually to asking. Something's going on, but what happens if you start healing some part of this?
Mm-hmm.
Because I've been with my partner for 29 years,
Mm-hmm.
and now I don't have any sexual desire whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
But still there is kind of a bond flowing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Can I point out the two main impediments to desire? What are they? So the main impediments to desire, so if we're looking at what will affect desire, what are the main reasons why a person wouldn't feel desire? There's two main reasons.
Can you think of any?
Can you think of them?
Just any desire, even.
Any desire for anything.
Fear is the primary thing.
Is a primary one, and anger is another. And of course, there's another that's probably fairly dominant as well, which is
Shame.
shame, which is the result of judgment, if you like. Right? Yep. Now, those things in particular affect desire. Right? So, if you don't feel sexual desire, then something's going on with one of these three things. Does that make sense?
or all three of them.
Or all three of them, yes. Yep. Now, in particular when it comes to healing emotions revolving the other gender, or in terms of attractions, what we need to do is we need to be particularly focused upon the feelings we have with the other gender. So if you're with a male and that's your partnership at the moment, then what you need to do is look at your fears with a male, your anger with the male, and your shame. Now, when I say fear, anger and shame with the male, I'm also saying in regards to yourself as a female with the male. Yeah. So in other words, you may have lots of shame that is sexual in relationship to the male that may be dictating why you've closed down things sexually. Now, the key is firstly to start with the anger generally, because the reality is that shame and fear are emotions that we usually cover over with anger. So in other words, we use anger as a way of suppressing shame and fear feelings. And what we need to do often is start with the anger, and then we will be able to get into the fear and shame related issues. Now, many people, after periods of time in their life, shut down sexual desire. And they say to us that, we're in a lovely relationship, but we don't have a sexual desire. And my answer to that is, well, you're not in a lovely relationship, number one, because a lovely relationship will include sexual desire. Now, many men understand that, right, because they're less shut down to sexuality many times than women, because of multi-generational reasons. Many women are more shut down to sexuality than men because of multi-generational reasons. For example, many women have been harmed by men sexually. So therefore there is a lot of anger and fear and shame associated with the opposite gender regarding sexuality. And so that causes them to shut down towards the opposite gender. Many women have been treated, objectified, shall we say. Most men are not objectified by sex. In other words, when a man's self-definition in the world we currently live in is often more about what he accomplishes than his sexual life. But many women are objectified by sex. They just are projected out from men that they are sexual objects. That causes many women to feel a great deal of anger towards men as a result, because the male is not accepting her other attributes, but rather only accepting one part of herself, just her sexual self. And even then, they don't really care the personality of the sexual self. They're only caring about the vagina and the breasts and the bottom and so forth. You know, they're only really connected to the physical of it. And because of that, many women have lots of anger about that in comparison to men. Most men, not as angry about those particular things. So culturally and environmentally, there is a lot more pressure on women, and has been, multi-generationally, a lot more pressure on women to shut down their sexual desires than there is by men. For that reason, many men don't feel as injured sexually they have often perpetrated injuries sexually, and therefore they have many emotions to deal with as a result, but they don't feel as injured with their sexuality as women do. And for that reason, in a relationship, many women close down sexually before the man does. And I'm not saying that's always the case, because nowadays there is a lot more problems with impotence in men as well. And that is the direct result of anger in the male towards the female. So there is these growing issues and problems in sexual relationships due to these three primary emotions being held onto. Does that help you with the question?
Yes.
Can you feel why you didn't want to ask the question?
At first, I felt a lot of fear about asking it.
Yeah.
And I felt also a lot of impatience that we never came to a point where it would be appropriate actually to ask it.
Right.
And I wanted to be very personal, it should be about myself and my partner if he would like that.
Yeah.
So it was a lot about, I didn't want to take up the space here.
Yeah.
Kind of not being important enough or being wrong for some reason.
Yeah, see, I suggest actually that the real reason, Eva, is that there are women spirits with you who do not want you to heal your sexual desire.
I actually guessed about that, but I'm not so aware of spirits.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
thank you for that.
And this is happening with many women at the moment. There are many spirits in the spirit world, women spirits in the spirit world, who are enraged by the entire concept of the soulmate union. In other words, they feel the soulmate union is definitely not where women want to go. They believe that they want women to have power over men because they've had years and years, many thousands of years of being dominated by men. Now they wish the women on the planet, they see a growing movement on the planet where women can now dominate men. And so what they try to do, they try to influence the women to use sex as a tool for control. And so many women are doing this now and causing women, the women in the spirit world, are doing this now, causing women on the earth to either be afraid, angry or ashamed and stay in those emotions rather than healing those emotions towards the opposite gender.
Or I would say be in rebellion of those emotions.
Be in rebellion of
either
those
shut
emotions.
down sexually completely
Yeah.
or reclaim sexuality, but in a very angry way that objectifies men. So I see this growing trend amongst women of my generation to be quite promiscuous and
Overtly sexual. They become like men, in fact. They've become
like
like
the
the men
injured
of the
male.
past.
Yeah. And apparently shameless. But I feel it's a rebellion against these core feelings that most women carry around sexuality.
And they call it reclaiming your sluttiness. Basically, that's what many women have in the younger generation are now involved in as well. So you can go into rebellion, which is not what you're doing. You're really going into the shutdown place.
Yes,
and
I think it's
there's a lot of anger
fear.
in that.
It's anger.
No, there's always anger in being shut down.
Okay.
Always anger. Remember I said start with the anger. Fear and shame are the underlying emotions, but start with the anger. The anger is always the start because whenever we shut down, can you feel, whenever you shut down, just imagine for a moment you and I were standing the opposite sides of a door and you got the door and closed it on me. That's what you're doing sexually.
That's anger.
That's anger,
Yeah.
you see?
Yeah.
Why would you want to get the door and close it on the person? Does that make sense? This is what's happening between yourself and Pierre.
To
So-
protect myself.
To protect yourself. There's other reasons too. There's a lot of reasons, but can you see they all have to have an angry effect? So the causes might be fear and shame, but the angry effect
The action
is the
anger.
action or the choice to reject the connection. And therefore, the anger is where you need to start. And see, many of us don't want to own the anger, and so we deny it exists and so forth, and we want to focus on our fear and shame. But the actual act of closing the door on another person, in whatever circumstance, is actually an angry act. So the reality is there must be anger present. Does that make sense?
Yes. So what would the way be? I mean, is it to get into a sexual situation and then kind of get in touch with my anger and
Certainly,
get out of it?
that is one way, certainly, to allow yourself to be touched sexually and then to feel your resistance to that. And then not just to feel it, but express it. Like, so, you know, if your partner touches you sexually and then you feel like really annoyed by it, then let yourself, instead of just feeling, you know, really express your annoyance. And you'll
Not
be...
to your partner, obviously.
Well, you know, obviously he's going to be present because he's just touched you. But if you express your annoyance just in terms of letting the emotion flow, what will come out of your mouth will often be a complete reflection of that anger. So in other words, you'll be surprised sometimes what comes out of your mouth, right? I've been often surprised what comes out of mine when I've felt something between myself and Mary, and then I go into this emotion, I feel, and off I go, and then wham, you know, there it is. That's the emotion. I can feel that now, you know, just by saying the words that are coming out of me while I'm feeling the feeling of anger in this case. So you could engage it that way, or you could just notice what annoys you on a day-to-day basis with regard to men. So you know, if he's never cooked a meal, does that annoy you? Because it's whatever annoyances are there that actually cover over the reason why you've closed the door. Does that make sense? And so a lot of times we overlook our annoyances in a relationship. Quite frequently, in fact, we do so. Where, for example, Mary might have cooked my meals for me for 10 years. And in that whole time, the only time I've ever cooked a meal for her was when I took her out to dinner somewhere else where somebody else cooked. Right? Let's say that's what happened. So 10 years she's had of this now. Can you feel that if she really felt herself emotionally, she'd be going, wow, he really expects me to do this. He really wants me to, you know, provide, you know, cook the meal for him all the time. Many men don't even know how to cook, let's face it, like because of this emotion, particularly, you know, in different cultures. And she then feeling a build-up of resentment that occurs over years. Naturally so, wouldn't it be? Because I'm not, you know, being loving, and I'm not even noticing that I'm being unloving. That naturally then would cause this resentment to build up over the years. Now, as the resentment builds up, that's anger, the sexual desire will automatically shut down. Has to. You can't have desire when there's anger present. Right? So, yeah. Does that make sense, Eva? So look at those annoyances with men in particular. It's the annoyances with men and the beliefs about yourself that will cause your anger to become present. So when I say the beliefs about yourself, they are the areas to look at, like, you know, do you feel that your body's getting older now and therefore you're not as attractive anymore? Do you feel like, you might have had, like in many women, they've had a few children and the doctors have had to cut their vagina and do things to get some of those children out, and they now have a scar with a cesarean as well and so forth, and they don't feel as attractive, and therefore they don't feel like, you know, they really feel like the man would find them attractive either, and so forth. So look at the areas of, you know, what the man is doing and your frustrations and annoyances, and then look at also how you perceive yourself. What are the beliefs you have about yourself sexually in particular? Yep.
Thanks.
All right.